I'm Ansel Burch.
I'm Byron Czopek.
I am Benton, Sancho, Sartore.
And it's
time to party!
This month's episodes about the 2009 Star Trek movie were recorded on June 13th, 2023. We are not doctors. We don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly. We are here to talk about the 2009 J.J. Abrams directed Star Trek. Not to be mistaken for all the other Star Treks.
Its official title is Star Trek 2009. It was on the poster, which they should just do for every movie. Just give you the title and the year so you remember where you were when. And you give context too. Because 2009, Kirk can get away with being an asshole to women, and it's still fine because it was 2009.
It was 2009. You're like, oh,
it was a different
we
time.
Didn't know better.
Yeah,
apparently.
we didn't know better.
Yeah.
We didn't know women just like when you just come into a bar and keep bugging them and then beat up their Starfleet commanders. Or get beaten up by them.
Weird how that puts people on.
It put people at, but we didn't know. How could we have known?
It was a different time.
Rotten Tomatoes says, aboard the USS Enterprise, the most sophisticated starship ever built, a novice crew embarks on its maiden voyage. Their path takes them on a collision course with Nero, Eric Bana, a Romulan commander whose mission of vengeance threatens all mankind. If humanity would survive, a rebellious young officer named James T. Kirk, Chris Pine, and a cool illogical Vulcan named Spock, Zachary Quinto, must move beyond their rivalry and find a way to defeat Nero before it is too late. This is more accurate, I guess, than the IMDb one, but...
Yeah.
Wow. Little overwrought. If humanity would survive,
I guess they do threaten Earth near the end. I don't quite remember.
Yeah, they do. Kind of as an afterthought.
Yeah.
It does feel like they were like, oh, we did it. Now what?
I guess we do Earth now?
Yeah, do we just keep going?
Do we just retire? We just go off like Thanos and start farming for a while.
Yeah. Do we go back to mining, I guess is what their job was before?
Yeah. Go back to Romulus and live like kings.
Yeah. Romulus, which, by the way, he came all the way back for vengeance. Romulus is right there. All he had to do was be like, yo, in a few years, this thing's gonna happen. Don't. Job done. Job done. You got, for free, the travel back in time and save the person who was most important to you thing. And you still wasted it on, I gotta make sure that guy dies. That guy right there...
25 years.
Just kill him.
Yeah.
It's a Bond thing.
25 years of vengeance.
During which time he did what?
He just sat there and waited for him.
25 years of vengeance and Parcheesi.
Right? Like, they must have a real good rec room on that spaceship if in 25 years none of the crew were like, you know what? Fuck this. Bye.
I mean, you've seen the lighting on that ship. They're all just brooding all the time.
Yeah. And why is it wet? Why is the one deck half underwater? Up to your knees in water to go torture that guy. What is going on?
The thing I loved most about their ship, though, it was just pipes. There was no drywall. There was just like... just pipes.
JJ could not decide what spaceships look like on the inside. Yeah, shit.
I'm glad we're bringing this up because half of my notes is like, why is there a boiler room on the Enterprise? Why is there
the ship runs on antimatter? Why is there a boiler room? What is this pipe for? What is this?
Like, in the future, did we just like sit back and realize, you know what, boiler rooms actually were pretty efficient? Let's go back to them. Like...
We really like them.
We like those pipes.
They just feel right.
They're just cool. They're nice.
I'm sure it was just at a production meeting. JJ's just like, pipes. We need pipes.
Lots of pipes. You know what's inside spaceships? Pipes.
Pipes. So many pipes.
Like every other Star Trek property, sleek walls, like carpeting. Not on these. No. Just exposed piping. The only room with walls is the bridge, and it looks like an iPhone store. Anyway.
So yeah, that's our view. There was a lot of pipes in this movie.
There's it is. That's the whole movie.
If you're a plumber, this movie's right up your alley.
Yeah. A+ for plumbers.
A+ for plumbers.
Top notch. How did you guys feel about starting with them? Well, first off, how did you feel about starting off with the like space battle, like right there in media res, just no time to readjust to what you're doing, just immediate cacophony of space battle? What'd you think of that?
I wrote, big surprise, another fucking ship opening up a sci-fi movie.
It's like, oh, here's space and here's the ship. It's not a giant spaceship.
Let's establish this is in space, everybody. Yeah.
Gotta have lasers. It was. I will admit, as I get older, and as I myself now a parent of 2, I get a little tired of like the manipulation of like, oh, the childbirth scene. It's more dramatic now. I'm like, okay, I realize that like trying to do a thing here, but like, ooh, childbirth.
Oh yes, yeah.
Ooh, child endangerment. Like,
thank you. Like, I thought the same thing.
I'm tired of that as a trope.
It was like, why is she having a baby right now? Like in the middle of this attack, it's okay. And then the other thing, the hacky mode. I wrote how much J.J. Abrams is a hack, and this is why I think he's a hack. When she's pushing the baby, they push the spaceship out the dock.
Yep. Yeah.
That I was like,
she pushes the baby out in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Not
well, it's
generously
the future.
5 minutes.
Generously 5 minutes. Well, how long was she in labor for?
We don't really know.
Exactly, we don't know.
Still though.
Yeah, it was definitely it was hacky.
Giving birth in the future is very different, apparently.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient.
I know we got to do the whole, like, this is how James Kirk was born, and, his father's great sacrifice and everything like that, but,
is that
as
the
a
whole...
parent, I'm like, yeah.
Is that the origin story?
I'm
like the canon origin story of Kirk?
Not originally, no. This is a totally new thing.
So if you're, like, a super Star Trek nerd, you're watching this for the first time, and either your head's exploding, because you're like, this isn't how it happened, or... You're just like, oh, okay.
Or you're me, and you're like, oh, that's how it happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as a Star Trek nerd, and I'll own that. I think for me, it was both at the same time. Somehow it managed to like ride that line of like, okay, it's Star Trek. This is dope as hell. That's not how that goes, but okay, all right, sure. 'Cause yeah, like, I don't remember ever hearing about Kirk's dad being in Starfleet. I don't remember anything about his dad being his inspiration or any shit before that. Like, I don't think that was in there. I watched the whole thing, and I don't remember him talking about his dad at all. Maybe it was in the books, but yeah.
The books aren't canon, though.
That's true. The books aren't canon. But yeah, so it was super interesting to have the change be that his dad dies on a spaceship, but also, I'm pretty sure Kirk was born in Iowa in the official canon. It's like he was born on land on Earth in Iowa. So having him be born on the spaceship at all is a change. I wouldn't swear to that, but I don't recall that being a thing.
I truly don't know enough about Star Trek to know anything about how Kirk was born.
Yeah. But regardless of whether or not it's canon, it is a little hacky to be like, okay, let's endanger the baby so that we have a reason to sacrifice ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just like at that Giant moment, that's when she goes into labor while he's working, and he cannot get away from work. Like, he didn't have like a...
Classic.
They didn't have like a spare guy to be like, okay, you take over in the event. This guy's got...
My wife is in labor. Extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, right? Unhappy Jerry, who's got no familial attachments. That's the guy who needs to drive the spaceship into the other spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting choices all around on that one.
I mean, I get it. It's like, I'm not, like, mad about it. I'm like, okay, like, this is just... You know what this is.
Yeah. It's a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously from there we go into the childhood bits. We don't need to go through the whole movie, but so what did you guys think of the thing overall? Like, how did you think about the like structure that Abrams went through and all of that business? Being as you are both pop culture observers and structuralists.
Given how quickly he joins Starfleet, I'm very curious. I wish I did a little bit more about, like, so what was keeping him from doing that in the first place?
Right?
Like, Pike is just like, hey, you should join Starfleet. Your dad was a captain, and Kirk already knew that.
One would hope.
So why did that provoke him to completely upend his life and enlist in, like, the course of less than 24 hours?
It's a good question. Also, apparently there's no paperwork to join Starfleet.
It's okay. He's a legacy.
Yeah, I guess. Who's...
Yeah, because he just showed up there in like dirty clothes, while everybody else is in their pristine.
He's still
red
like
suits.
got blood on him from the night before.
Yeah. He's just like, I didn't need, like, I'm well aware that I'm a nerd and I like having explanations for things sometimes, but just, I don't know. It was never really clear to me, like, what was keeping him on Earth other than just, like, stubbornness, which I guess might be enough. I mean, given the character. But
I think it would have been interesting if it was like, space killed my dad, I don't want to go to space, or if there had been, like, conflict there, or if we establish at any point that he's like, yeah, my dad died so that we could all live in space or whatever. But to have him make neither of those choices without prompting is, I don't know. Yeah, it's odd.
yeah.
And I mean, it's not as though he shows no opinion either way. Like, why is he in the Starfleet bar at the beginning unless he's waiting for somebody to be like, you know, kid, you should join Starfleet.
Shut up, you're not my dad.
I know, I wrote my dissertation about him, but I am going to forget some key details later on so that you can bring them up.
Touche.
I think though the movie too has this, like, it's like action sequence, and then eventually it's just like, oh yeah, we got to be a movie too. Like about like an hour, like after about an hour, I think I wrote, I've got another fucking hour left of this movie. God damn it! Why? Because the whole time I was sitting there, I'm thinking like, well, if it's just a bunch of action sequences, then this should be a pretty easy watch.
So it's just
like,
Fast and the Furious,
2
but
hours
in space.
and just watching stuff blow up. Yeah, exactly. That's all. You know, at late at night after my kids go to sleep, and like, because I watched it after like taking care of them pretty much all day, and I'm just like sitting back and I'm just kind of like, yeah, just watch a bunch of action sequences, and then like a plot starts showing up, and I'm like, oh, man. I should have just really gotten rid of this. Just do some action sequences to get that Green Lady back up again. Which I think they did the Green Lady wrong, because they really, like, the first time you see her, like, in the dorm room and everything, like, you know, the makeup's on point and everything. Every other time you see her, it's like they just slopped green paint on her face and said, go back out there. Like,
it was a really...
It looked like the paint was melting off.
Having
like,
her in there at all was a weird choice. Because, like... Okay, going back to... as one of the two Star Trek nerds in the conversation, the Orions, which is what she is, were, like... super sketchy space pirates at this point in canon history. To the point where, like... we only ever see Orions as villains until way later in canon.
There could be some other green-skinned humanoid alien species.
I suppose? There could.
Yeah, I think it's just a tie-in to the original series.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and I can't be too mad that like, they put an Orion in my Star Trek movie, but it was just
this is the wrong kind of nerd thing.
This is how Trump gets elected when you go like this. Putting Orion in my Star Trek movie. This woke Star Trek I don't like.
But
which is funny because Star Trek was always kind of woke because it had everybody.
That was explicitly the point. That's why Lucille Ball was like, "Yes, this is what I will pay for." Wokeness in space.
I do think it's a fun movie. I don't think it's as cerebral as like Star Trek's other better outings. You know, Wrath of Khan, Voyage Home, Undiscovered Country, First Contact. But I mean, it is a fun movie, and that counts for something. It's a popcorn movie, and like that's okay. Like it doesn't have to be like, analyzing the end of the Cold War through the view of Federation Klingons or something like that, or that kind of thing. I think it's a fun movie. I think it brought people into the theater. It got people excited. It felt right. It didn't feel like it is a very actiony movie, but it feels like kind of generally optimistic. Like it's not like a grim and gritty movie where like bad things happen all the time or that kind of thing. Like it's a fun. It said like, hey, Star Trek's back. Like we're rebooting this for new people who want to see this.
And it did legitimately
for the
put
next
new energy.
Generation of Star Trek
Yeah, it
fans.
did legitimately put new energy into the franchise. Like,
yeah.
I don't think we would have any of the Star Trek we have today in this golden era of Star Trek if it weren't for these movies sort of breathing new life into the whole thing and showing us that it could be fast and sexy and full of explosions again.
Yes.
And JJ wouldn't have gotten the Star Wars job out of this.
Also true.
Yeah.
I forget if it was the pitch meeting or how it should have ended for this, and they talked about how this was basically just JJ's Star Wars demo reel, and they show like side by side comparisons of like 8 different scenes from Star Wars and this movie, like the escape pod, like the desert planet, like so many things.
That was the whole thing I was thinking this whole time I was watching it, because every time they would introduce like Scotty or they would introduce like Sulu or something, it would be like, oh yeah, that's how they did it in the Star Wars movies. So you like turn the camera and there's C-3PO and all your other people.
And there's a brief inexplicable pause while we all go.
Yeah, exactly. He said the thing. He said I'm a doctor. Damn it. Yeah.
I'm giving it all she's got. Yay!
Yeah. Yay! And when Spock went live long and prosper, it just brought me back. You want that kind of reaction.
I will say they made the right choice by bringing back Leonard Nimoy for this movie. He was one of the few still surviving cast members at that point, and that number's even lower these days. But I don't think it would have worked with like William Shatner or anybody else really.
I feel like Shatner could have handed it off to the next generation, and we all would have bought it if Shatner had been in the mood to do so. But you're right. Like, Nimoy was the heart and soul of Star Trek for a long time. So much of Star Trek lore centers around Spock. And, he really was the signature we needed on this was Nimoy.
Yeah. Nimoy has the gravitas to, like, really sell, like, this is a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
I think the best part, too, is when they go, we're looking for this guy, and they just, like, throw, like, a floating Leonard Nimoy head and it's just bouncing around.
Yes.
Like... That made me laugh.
That was the weirdest way to do that.
I mean, this.
How do we show that these people are from a farther distant future than these other people who are from the future? They throw their holograms in the air. That's how we know.
Like they just
this guy. Who's this guy? Well, I don't fucking know.
And it's just like back and forth randomly.
All of the Romulans are way too close to the camera.
We're still working on the technology
for whatever reason.
Yeah,
they don't know how to video call.
we're still working on
Yeah.
this, guys. All right. Eventually, we'll get a full 360 around. But look, just use your imagination. It's on our roadmap.
It's on the roadmap. Look, bro, we're minors, not media journalists.
Look, FY 2023, it'll turn around. Q4, maybe. Safe harbor. Don't make any purchasing decisions based on, what we were talking about in the future. Make them based on what we have currently.
Oh, the corporate speak.
That was just Sir Ansel. Yeah.
Oh, right in my agile heart. Byron, as a first-time person, or as watching this movie for the first time and not being like a huge Star Trek nerd, did it all make sense?
No. I'll be brutally honest, no. But then again...
I mean, they didn't make it for you, in fairness, but...
Yeah, listen, there were no Lucha Libre wrestlers in this. There was no, like, 10-part documentary on the Bulls. There was no, what other things am I interested in? There was no talk about how COVID is a hoax and how we...
God damn it.
Damn it.
It's another 5 minutes we're not going to be able to use.
The Last Dance was good, though.
So I've heard.
Yeah,
it
was
was.
a documentary series.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does not have time travel, so we can't talk about it. So.
It's like traveling back to the
Per
85,
the rules of the show.
right? Or whenever the hell it was. 93?
It's not like Michael Jordan got in a DeLorean and said, listen, don't bother for a good 5 years until Phil gets here. It's Phil Jackson, by the way, for you.
For the nerds who don't know that.
Which I share a birthday with. I share a birthday with Phil Jackson, which made me so happy. Yeah.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
I think the plot of the movie's all right. I think it's relatively straightforward, as much as a time travel movie can be.
As good as you can do, yeah, really.
Yeah. I appreciate that I feel like they held it close to their vest that this was actually a reboot, not just a prequel. So I walked into the movie. I saw it in the theater. And thinking it's going to be a prequel, and then they destroy Vulcan, and I'm like, wait, they go to Vulcan in the third movie. Oh, they're redoing the timeline. This is a reboot, not just a prequel.
I appreciate that they went to the trouble of having Leonard Nimoy explain to us, the nerds at home, this is in fact a different timeline. Everything from here on is different. Don't worry about it. He may have been looking at Zachary Quinto when he said it, but he said it to me.
Yeah, and it's a decent enough frame for like mostly an action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're gonna make Fast and the Furious in space, you did it. Like,
yeah.
It was. I don't think it was a great Star Trek movie, but it was an awesome Star Trek movie. If you take my meaning,
it was one of those movies that's constantly moving. Like you're constantly moving, going through. It's not like you're like staying in one spot the entire time, which does lend really well for like a big kind of action movie. Like I watched, like I mentioned, I watched this on a projector in my backyard, and the first thing I was like, I'm glad I watched it this way. Because if I had just watched it on my TV, I probably wouldn't have gotten as sucked in as I did during those first, action sequences.
Mm-hmm. And boy, action sequences. JJ knows how to do those. I kind of forget about that in amongst all of the I can't make a movie that doesn't have a red ball of goo or lens flares in it.
Or a mystery box.
Or mystery boxes, yeah.
I guess not in this one, though.
Yeah, he held himself back on the mystery box for this one. Yeah. Unless Spock himself is the mystery box.
He's a mystery wrapped in an enigma. You really think about it with Spock.
Yeah.
Spock is such an enigmatic character. Like the whole time I'm like, man, I wish Spock was my boss. And then I'm like, maybe he actually is my boss, because I can see part of my boss having Spock-like tendencies. I'm like, well, this is not the most logical thing. I'm like, you're right. Let's do it different.
getting Winona Ryder in this movie?
Yeah.
That was a surprise the first time I watched it.
Okay, I clearly was not watching this movie because I didn't know where did she show up? Was she Spock's mom?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Oh yeah. No wonder I like Spock's mom. I was just like, there's something about her I like.
Yeah.
It turned out she was Winona Ryder the whole time.
You did immediately have an attachment. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, I know you.
From that robbery you did that one time. Yeah, didn't she steal something from like a department store or something that one time? Yeah.
She did. Yeah. There was a...
And everybody was just like, how could she come back from this? It's like, it's shoplifting. Who cares? There's so much... People didn't realize how much worse stuff...
Different times.
Different times when we could just make a woman feel terrible about herself for a thing like shoplifting. And yet Harvey Weinstein was running wild. I'm gonna make this podcast as uncomfortable as humanly possible. So let's talk about this COVID hoax once more. So
God damn it.
It was made in lab.
We're like 20 minutes away from 9/11 conspiracies.
Speaking of 9/11 conspiracies, actually. So, I liked this movie. I liked it when I first saw it. I like it when I watch it now. I will admit, it has been tarnished for me a bit. I feel like the promise of this movie, a bold new era of Star Trek, is it didn't really. I mean, it led to like a whole bunch of new Star Trek shows. But, like the promise of like this specifically, I would say didn't.
Wait, how does this relate to 9/11?
I'm getting there. Didn't really come about until the more recent show, Strange New World, which is basically the adventures of the Enterprise before Kirk was there, kind of thing. Which is like the one show that I'm like, oh yeah, Star Trek. I'll watch this show every week.
It's stunning. By the time this episode airs, they will be a few episodes into the season. If you haven't been watching it, you should. It's incredible.
Oh, nice. It's a well done show. But anyways, getting back to the 9/11 part, I think this is a perfectly fine movie. I think the sequel to this really stunk, and really kind of affected how I saw the Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, J.J. Abrams Star Trek series, in that it was a darker movie. It felt very much about like a movie about like 9/11 conspiracy theories, and like kind of 9/11 was an inside job sort of thing. Like, because the movie's about like a terrorist attack that's like an inside job in Starfleet, and it's kind of playing with a lot of those narratives and everything. And it's just not a very good movie. It's trying to be very reverent to Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, which was a very good movie, and a movie that I really enjoyed. And it was trying so hard to like mimic that movie that it forgot to tell any kind of story of its own. I felt like Into Darkness just really, really sank my opinion of the rest of the series. The third one, Star Trek Beyond, is perfectly
delightful.
Fine. I think it's neither super good nor super bad. I only saw it the one time. I don't remember it very well. And at that point, I was soured by Into Darkness. Also, I will admit, I saw Into Darkness on a screen that was like just like the video was just slightly off, so like it was just a little bit more blurry than it should have been. But yeah, I think the fact that the sequel to this like just kind of did not fulfill the promise of what this movie was heralding, in retrospect, like kind of hurt this movie for me a bit. And so I think it's a perfectly fine movie, but I don't remember it as fondly as I think I would if I had never seen the sequel.
Yeah, if it weren't for Into Darkness. I can see that. Yeah, Into Darkness soured a lot of people on the series, and I mean, to the point where they had to course correct with Beyond, and did successfully, yeah. I think. But yeah, like the problem
with Beyond too is that at that point Leonard Nimoy had died, and then after Beyond finished filming, Anton Yelchin died.
Yeah,
which didn't help things.
Not at all. But yeah, Beyond. Into Darkness, I think you're absolutely right. Made a lot of mistakes in tone, in choosing to tell a 9/11-ish story.
In trying too hard to copy Wrath of Khan to the point where it doesn't even make sense within the movie.
Well, and to have Khan, like, here's the thing that I think could have fixed this whole trilogy.
Byron is sitting here very patiently because we're talking about a movie he hasn't actually seen.
Yeah, right.
A sequel to the movie he just saw for the first time.
We really appreciate your patience.
Well, here, yeah, no, of course. I'm just doing my laundry list in here of like, I gotta.
Oh, we are out of milk. But no,
I gotta restain the floor.
The thing that this trilogy could have done to make everything a million times better is just come up with new names. This did not have to be the Kirk and Spock and Chekhov show. Mm-hmm. These could have been totally new characters in the Star Trek universe, and I think it would have been easier to tell. You could still have Spock travel back in time. That's not, that's allowed. And then to have Khan again in the second one, inexplicably played so differently for no apparent reason.
I think it was an act of enormous hubris to say we are going to try to remake probably the most beloved Star Trek movie.
Easily. I mean, aside from Voyage Home. But yeah.
I want to see that remake with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, where they have to go save the whales in the 1980s.
Yes, please. Yes,
That's not even a joke, Byron. It's a movie where they go back in time and save the whales.
It's great. They fly their spaceship back in time.
They gotta save the whales.
Yep.
Was that just when they were like running out of ideas? So they were like, let's just whales.
I don't know, but they pulled it off.
Know.
It's so good.
It's a very silly movie, but it works.
Yeah.
It's like their Rocky 5 where they just
what have we not done?
Where they just are like, listen, what if Rocky just doesn't fight and he coaches a guy? But then the guy doesn't like being coached, and then they fight in a parking lot, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh.
So I just spoiled Rocky 5 for everybody here. That
you know what? If you didn't know how Rocky 5 ends, you probably didn't care enough.
If you didn't know there was a Rocky 5, now you know. That's the other thing. People do not like to admit that there is a Rocky 5.
If I'm honest, this might be the first I'm hearing
it's like Godfather 3. They don't want to admit that one either.
We don't talk about the Godfather 3.
No, we don't talk.
Didn't happen. Wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on like how you thought the movie ended? How you thought the anything about the cinematography or other things that are your particular bellywicks?
The thing I loved was old Spock and young Spock run into each other, and young Spock's like, I gotta leave. I gotta take care of the Vulcans, and old Spock's like, no, it's okay. We'll repopulate. And I'm like, wait, is old Spock just going back to like just bag it out? Why is he making young Spock go back out? He's like, oh no, you're gonna have a lot of fun there with Kirk. Like he was totally just like, no, I'll repopulate. Don't worry about it. And then like the movie I think should have ended when they do that crane shot up and like old Spock's looking over him, like over everybody, and he's just like, he looks in the camera and goes, well, I go home and fuck now. And then it's like and then it's like like they do the Star Wars music just to piss everybody off. That's how I would have directed it. Let's zoom out the blue credits. Everybody just sits in the theater and is like, wait, what did I just watch?
Just old Spock high fives Chewbacca.
Spock? Leonard Nimoy's gonna fuck and we don't even get to see it.
Oh, it what?
Then we put a QR code at the end, like, hey, that just says, you want to see it?
There you go.
And then, like, you click the QR code.
The
and you
Vulcan
subscribe.
OnlyFans.
Yep, Vulcan OnlyFans.
How about you, Ben?
yeah, I don't really have much to add beyond my own thoughts about how it kind of fits into the great continuum of Star Trek movies. I mean, I think it's a perfectly fine movie. I talked about the sequel already. I mean, there have been so many Star Trek time travel stories. This is, I mean, the villain is completely forgettable in this one. I think he's just there to drive the plots.
Yep.
But, I think it's a fun movie. Like I said, I think it's a movie you can show to somebody who's not really a Star Trek person, like Byron here, and they'll be like, okay, like I get enough of this to follow along with it and like have fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's its mission. I think it does a very good job of that.
What did you think of the time travel before we call it a night on the review? What did you think of the time travel, Byron?
I still don't understand it. So old Spock went into what was a red goo? Like
it's a real good question. They never really explained that part.
And then it goes back. Yeah, because it was just like all of a sudden I saw red goo everywhere, and I'm like, what is this?
Was it like the red goo was supposed to like stabilize the supernova, but it doesn't do it in time or something?
Yeah, that was what they said.
Interacts and just goes back in time or something?
Yeah. Also, if you only use the red goo in individual droplets, why did they give him so much of it? Just an egregious amount of this clearly dangerous material.
It tastes great in coffee.
Maybe. Apparently this red goo also featured in Alias, which...
it did,
yeah.
yes.
So it's a J. original.
It did not cause time travel in that TV show, but it did some weird things, I think. I don't remember all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So. Oh, no, it did do some, not time travel, but other weird stuff. So, man, that was a lifetime ago.
But yeah, so the nickel version is the goo is supposed to turn the star, the exploding star, inside out, basically, so that it won't blow up the planets that are around it. And he doesn't do it in time, so it creates a black hole, and that somehow sends them back in time, apparently.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how you do it.
If a black hole opens up near you and you get sucked in, you travel through time. Clearly.
It's an interstellar. Clearly, it's hard science.
Yep. And so, because Nero got sucked through first, there was a time delay between the two of them appearing in the past. And that's why that happened.
I guess.
It is an interesting time travel mechanism, to say the least.
The movie does not care. I do not think. It's like, the important thing is that it happens.
Yep. We need someone to be mad at Spock, and we need Spock to go back in time. Those are the two key pieces. So, guys, now that we've talked about the movie, do you think that Star Trek was worth your time?
It was worth my time in that I got to talk to you guys. I would have never watched this movie otherwise. I didn't even realize this was a movie, to be brutally honest.
And how about you, Benton? What was this movie worth your time?
I mean, I admit I didn't finish it on this viewing just because of trying to cram it in with other things I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
I think it's worth my time. Yes. I think it's a fun movie. Like I said, it's a fun escape. It's not a deep thinker, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be.
Exactly. Especially taking us back to that more simple era of Star Trek.
2009.
It definitely felt like of what I've seen of the old TV show, it felt like it had a little bit of that campy kind of vibe to it, which I did appreciate.
It played like all the like highlight reels of the original series. The original series had a lot of like cerebral weirdness and philosophy and digging into the nature of man, but that stuff doesn't make it into the clip reels, and this was just the clip reels.
This was shut up and play
exactly
the hits.
Right. Yeah, we didn't come here to see you do a jazz improvisational set.
We don't want anything from the new album. We just want
Piano Man.
Yeah, we just want Piano Man. We want Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Freebird.
We want Freebird.
Oh, well, with that, friends, let's take it home.
Find me online at Indecisionist on Twitter and at The Indecisionist on Instagram. Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art and to Marlon Longett of Marlon and the Shakes for our amazing theme song. This has been an Indecisionist production. You can find show notes and full transcripts of all of our episodes at indecisionist.com. Interact with the show using the hashtag #Time2Party. That's time, the number 2 party, as well as time, the number 2 party, all spelled out thanks to Warren. So now, pod friends, whatever you do from now to the end of time,
be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes.